So the first thing I wanted to cover is basically your origin story. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how you remember what life was like before you started the program and the things that you were struggling with the most.
Yes. I would wake up in the morning, very tired usually. Often I would be in pain, just my legs hurt or my back hurt or I slept funny. Something wasn't well, and I was immediately stressed about the day. Um, I would immediately start with a nice big sugary cup of caramel latte coffee and proceed to um, work through my very stressful day just at this high intensity. And it wasn't necessarily that I was highly productive, but that my stress level was so intense, it was all I could see. That and being physically in pain, it was hard to sit down. I worried that if I sat on something, it would break because I was so large. And that's a worry I'd carried for my whole life, pretty much. I'd lost weight, but always gained it back. And so that the way I lived was, is that chair going to support me? Do we have to get a booth? Because I don't know that I can fit in the booth. If I go on the airline, am I going to need to be very cozy with my next door neighbor? Do I need to get an extra seat? Do I need to get a seatbelt extender? All of these little micro worries within the day that just added to that overall intensity of stress. And I physically felt miserable. I did a really great job of enjoying food and relaxation to ignore the pain and ignore the stress levels and ignore kind of that shame blame game that I played, thinking that that would somehow get me healthy or somehow make me happier. And so even though I did a job I loved, I remember thinking, wow, I have everything I was told I needed. I was told that being skinny would get me. I have everything. I have the home, the family, the job, the friends. I have this huge sense of purpose in my life. Like I have all of those things and I'm big and I did it. Woohoo. Aren't I amazing? Why don't I feel good? I have all these things. Why don't I feel good? These were all of these. This was the list of stuff that was supposed to mean my life was successful and I'd done it. Why don't I feel good? Why don't I feel happy? Why am I snapping at everyone around me all the time? Why do I feel like I want to give up the career that I have wanted almost my entire life? What is going on? But it was so scary to look at what was going on to try and change. I just wanted to keep going. And so it was kind of stuck, I felt like, in this pattern of or more like a roller coaster that just didn't stop.
Yeah. And just for context, like what did you weigh at your heaviest?
Well, at my ultra heaviest, I was over 400 pounds.
Wow.
When you and I started working together, I was close to 300 pounds.
Right.
And so I had lost it and was on my way to right back up to 400 pounds. So if we had,
yeah, and you had lost some before and then gained it back too, right?
Yes. And that was that whole yo-yo dieting thing,
right.
Very much just in longer cycles, I feel like, over years, but 5 pounds a year for 10 years is 50 pounds.
Yeah.
And it can very easily sneak in and creep up, but it was the same old habits, I guess. And that's one of the things that I've really come to understand through our work together is the mindset of how I was living, the way I was thinking about living and health, and nutrition, but living and health were the first two that we really looked at. And that was a shift in perspective. It wasn't all about my weight. And even though I knew that consciously, subconsciously, and other people have had this experience where if you go to the doctor and something's wrong and you're heavy, the first thing they do is tell you to lose weight.
Yeah, well, and that's exactly what I was going to segue into, is if there was like a specific moment or an event that made you realize like stuff's got to change right now, or, that's it.
Yeah. Yes. And it wasn't when I thought it was. Yes. And I had taken a lot of pride in being a big girl.
Yeah.
I was goddess sized and I owned that as part of who I was. Like that was my role and there was nothing wrong with me and there's nothing wrong with this. And really felt an identity with that, but never truly felt happy or comfortable in that skin, in that body.
So do
I
you
had
think that was
lots
kind
of
of like a
thoughts.
facade in some sense? Like that was like something you were projecting that you didn't necessarily feel like you were being honest with yourself about?
Yes, because in my mind conceptually, everybody is beautiful. Everyone should have love and respect and all of those things. And rationally, I understood that. But what I didn't get was I didn't feel good in my body because I didn't feel good. There wasn't anything wrong with my body except it didn't feel good. And so I was so focused on my right to be big that I didn't actually check in with my body and go, what do you feel like? What actually feels good? What makes
Mhm.
you happy? Yes, you have this, this sword in your hand and you're going to champion this cause. Your happiness is what's the most important. And so, up and down, battled up and down because I did want to feel good and I did want to be happy and I didn't like being in pain and I didn't like laying down at night and my lower back hurting and knowing that the first 5 minutes of laying down was going to be in pain.
Mm.
And when I got up, I used to say it was like you were unfolding a chair. That it just took that long for my body to unwind and open up like a folding chair when I would get out of a sitting position because I was so stiff. Even just sitting for 5 minutes, it was incredible, the pain. But that wasn't what got me. What got me was going to the doctor and her telling me that my blood pressure was so high, and I had incredible blood pressure even at over 400 pounds. But at
Wow.
this blood pressure was so high that I was going to have to stop taking a medication. You're going to have a blood clot and die of a stroke or a heart attack. And I got really angry with her and said, you can't tell me what to do. And she basically said, I am your doctor and I can tell you whether or not you're going to get to take this medication. And if you don't get your blood pressure down, you're not going to. And I couldn't get it down. I started doing things that I thought were going to help and they didn't help because my mindset really changed. I was still kind of, I can do it. I can do it my way and I can do it with, the shame and the blame and the guilt. And I just, I'm going to kick myself in the tail. And that's how I lost weight before. So that's how I'm going to do it now. Which, can you imagine didn't do anything great for my blood pressure, as a matter of fact. My blood pressure stayed high and they took me off that medication. And I was really surprised by the condition of my health. Because at that point I went, wow, okay, so at any minute, if I continue this medication, I am so heavy and I am so stressed. I am so unhealthy. And here are all the markers that I can't ignore. Like, it's not just my weight, it's my blood pressure. And yeah, big and beautiful, absolutely. But with a stroke, died in her 40s. I mean, come on. And I don't know, maybe midlife crisis is what they call it, but I think there's a point where you realize, hey, this is the only skin I'm in, the only flesh suit I get this go round, and I can't play fast and loose with it and expect to feel good and to
Right.
be healthy. Another big part of it was that, yeah, I'm getting older and so are the people around me, and I want to be able to take care of them. I want to be able to be around for them. And I remember once my son said to me, don't you think your grandkids want you to be around for them? And it was right. And that wasn't it, though. That wasn't the catalyst. You would think something like that. But it really was the acknowledgement that here are all of these markers that show me I'm so far from the path that I want to be on. I'm so far from the actual happy, lovely life that I want. I have all these things, I have the home and the kids and the career, but I don't feel good.
Mm.
I'm not happy because my body hurts all the time and I'm not getting any better with it. So so something's got to change. And actually, that could be everything. I don't know what's got to change, but I know I've got to get help because
Right.
everything I had tried, and I had tried for about 6 weeks before you and I spoke because okay, I'm going to do it this time. And no, same old mindsets didn't make it happen for life.
Yeah.
And that's what needed to happen was healthy for life, not just lose weight on this great diet or this
Right.
awful diet, usually not great.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. So I guess that leads into like when you first started, what would you say surprised you the most about the challenge of working with a coach? Or like if you could extrapolate a little bit more about like what you may not have expected about work about the coaching experience.
Um, it's interesting. I knew it would need to be a partnership that was strong. What I didn't realize was one, how incredibly safe and open I felt being in the conversation with you. I really thought, okay, here's someone who's going to kick my ass, but I'm going to pay him for it. So that's going to make it okay. And that's not at all what occurred. What occurred was I got a partner in my health who works with me. You take the time to know me, and that wasn't something I expected. I expected we talk about my goals, and we look at, where I failed in the past, and we'd create a plan, and it would be very scripted, and it would be very firm, and I would do those things, and I would get the results. And actually, it has been very different than that. It's been very much, let me show you how to do this. Here are some tools for your goals. You want to change your life. So let's talk about your life. You want to change your stress levels. Let's talk about your stress levels. Let's talk about your sleep.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what you do for your mental health. We'll get to food, we'll get to exercise, but let's talk about these other components first. And I didn't expect that either. And I think that was part of what helped me feel so comfortable and safe was, oh my goodness, this is a completely new approach. For me, it was food and exercise. Those are the things I need to be thinking about. And the concept that I would focus on getting good sleep first. Oh, yeah. I mean, I guess that's important. No, it's critical. Or I would focus on building these small habits over time. No, I gotta, eat 15 grapefruit a day and only have, 3, I don't know, grams of carbs a day or whatever it was that we were all thinking was the healthy way to do these things that really weren't, because they weren't sustainable
Right.
and they weren't for life. And that, even though that's what I said I wanted, I want you to help me do this for life because I'm tired of the roller coaster up and down all the time, and I can't live in this level of stress. And I know those two things are connected.
Mm-hmm.
I know my unhappiness is connected to my stress, and I know my body health is connected to my stress, but I don't know how to unwind all of that.
Right.
I don't have another way, or I don't have the tools. And that, I didn't expect the tools you gave me. I didn't expect that I would be able to use them and take them on and refine them.
Yeah, totally. And I love that's the way that you see it, because like it's never been my mission to like just tell you how to be or what to do or how to live your life. I think there are some coaches that operate that way, but I think it's, in order for it to be sustainable, it has to be yours. And so empowering agency is definitely that's my goal, is to empower you with agency. And I just love that you've embodied that. And, I don't want to go like super deep into the details about the actual coaching method, because that would be a whole other video in and of itself. But we've talked a lot about like this sort of heuristic that, I call the move, rest, connect concept. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about how you kind of embodied that, because we talked about tools a little bit, and especially how that fit into your lifestyle as a teacher. Because I think people that might be listening to this might say, well, she talked about work and stress, but what was the nature of the work? Well, you're a teacher. And that is kind of like I imagine like one of the hardest professions that I could possibly imagine, when it comes to like having to balance, like you're doing weight loss, you're introducing strength training. Oh, and you still have to like show up for class and grade papers and, really volatile work schedule. But you managed to really balance that really elegantly. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your experience with that.
Thank you for that question, because I feel like I'm still learning how to answer it. Like that
Sure, fair
that
enough.
balance of standing on that. There's the cool board that goes on a sphere or something, some kind of cool balance board. I don't know. You see them advertised on TikTok all the time. But I feel like it is kind of that game. Like, okay, I'm going to balance this. My goal is to learn how to stay on the board.
Hmm.
And
I like that.
sometimes I'm leaning a little forward and I need to lean back or to the side or to the side. I'm always going to be readjusting, but my goal is to stay on the board. And it's okay if I fall off the board, but I'm going to get back on the board and I'm going to try and figure out how to stay on the board a little longer. And that is so different than my goal is losing 25 pounds. My goal is to have balance in my life. And so, and I had to prioritize standing on the board.
Mhm.
And so a big thing was, and I remember you and I talked about this very early on. I've got it written in like 2 or 3 places on sticky notes at work and in my journal and things like that. Determine what your priorities are, what your hell yes is, and
Mm.
everything else is a hell no. And for me, knowing that I needed to revamp everything from how I had thought to do it before, because what I was doing wasn't working. I kind of had to start with a clean slate and go, okay, it wasn't working. What are my priorities? What is most important to me? Be here healthy for my family, to be a good teacher, which means that my mental health has got to be strong to go into those classrooms and work with those students and work with my fellow teachers. It's an incredibly stressful profession. And one I love, and that's a priority. And so kind of seeing that it's actually more important to my family. I remember I was driving down the road and I had this epiphany. Oh my God, it's probably more important to my family that I take care of me than that I do whatever thing I think I need to do for them. The laundry will be there tomorrow. If I don't take some time to go for a walk, my mental health might be so overwhelming that I might not even be able to have a kind conversation with my husband. It doesn't matter about the laundry then, does it? Because my priority is my husband. The laundry is going to be there. What's my priority? Or, okay, I have a lot of paperwork that's due whenever. I have all of these classes to teach today. I know I will be able to do all of that more effectively with a 15 or 20-minute walk. Where can I find it? Where can I put in those places that actually align with my priorities, with my hell yes? And that took some time on the board to figure out what those were and how to, and I feel like that is still part of it. How do I fit those in? I've been doing a lot of traveling recently. So I'm not always home on the Sunday when I always meal prepped. How do I do that now? Because that is a success strategy for me. That is a tool that works. Having pre-portioned meals at work ready to go is a strategy that works for me. Actually, I need it at home too. I discovered along the way, balancing on the board.
Oh, interesting.
But also that I can do that in 5 minutes
Right.
before I go to work. Sometimes if I'm not here every Sunday, I need to find another place to put it in, but I can. And I'm not bad because I fell off the board. I get back on the board and I try again. And so shifting the mindset too from this is about who you are as a person to this is about what you as a person prioritize. What do you want to do? It's not about your worth or your value as a human being. What do you want to do? What makes you happy? What are your priorities? And then love yourself and give yourself those boundaries and priorities. And that's a place I fall off the board sometimes.
Right. Well, because and we've talked a lot about like balancing that dichotomy between accountability and responsibility with that self-compassion component, because it's not easy. Like before we hit record, a lot of what we were talking about was like how there's never this like pure optimization. It's always going to be this balancing act of like, well, this is where I made some mistakes. This is what I did well. And then this is what us meeting every week was really about, was like figuring out what the wins were, figuring out what the struggles were, and then just game planning and strategizing around how to lean into the strengths and how to, work with the setbacks. And yeah, so it was like a collaborative process is something I really want people to understand.
And as you were saying that, I realized that's part of the toolkit you gave. Part of the tool in the toolkit that you gave me was, this is how you approach this as an experiment, as a I don't want to say a game we're playing, but as a collaboration between you and I. It's also one with myself. Okay, let's review the plan. You're not getting the outcomes that you wanted. Okay, cool. What was the input? What did did you track everything this week, or did you get good sleep? Or the conversations that you and I would have on the calls became the conversations that I started having with myself around, okay, what is my goal? This didn't work out. It's just, the weight, the getting on the scale, I'm grinning because I almost have that one down. Getting on the scale is really, really hard. I have a lot of inner dialogue around what that number on the scale means.
And you and a lot of people, you're totally not alone in that. And honestly, I hate asking you to do it, but the conversation we keep coming back to is, it's just a data point, right? Yes. Like even the notion of you like succeeding or failing on a given week, well, those are just data points, and so all we have to do is just game plan for the next thing. Like a metaphor I like to use a lot, and this is not an original idea, but it's one that I heard that I really like. It's like when people go off track with their diet, it's akin to like getting a flat tire. And when they just say, oh, well, screw it. It's kind of like going around and slashing the other 3 tires, and that is unfortunately what a lot of people end up doing, instead of just saying, okay, what did I do wrong? And taking this, like all the self-judgment out of it, which is why, we got a lot into mindfulness practice too. Cause it was like taking the self-judgment out and just evaluating what happened and game plan for the next phase.
And always kind of, again, back to, well, what's my priority? Is it sitting here telling myself how awful I am, or is it getting to the goal? Let's keep, eyes on the prize. Okay. Data says the game plan we used didn't work. Let's review where we think we could do better. Let's review the strengths and weaknesses. Oh, I'm trying to remember, there was something that we were talking, and I hadn't made my goal the way I wanted to. We were talking about something. And as we were talking, it was like, oh, well, that makes perfect sense. I didn't blah-de-de-blah. And it wasn't anything I was going to find if I talked down to myself about it, if I made it a failure as a person, as opposed to, I tried something, didn't work, bummer. Still want to get to that place, still have that goal, still have that priority. Okay, cool. What are we going to do next? What are we going to do next? What's the next, and almost with a sense of curiosity instead of a sense of judgment.
Oh, I love that you said that. I love that you said that, because that's a big part of the mindfulness component too, is like, it's curiosity without judgment. I'm not here to tell you that like you did all this stuff wrong. It's like, you have a goal, and I'm going to tell you like point blank, these are the things that are going to help you work towards your goal, and these are the things that are not. And curiosity is such an important element, because it's like this sort of intellectual humility and a willingness to be wrong. And like curiosity, I think, is just so fundamental to that. It's like, oh, well, how could I be doing this better? And what were the things that I did that might have led me away from my goal? And what can I do differently next time?
And in you talking about that just now, I realized in that approach, which was not what I expected, and it is something that you give and you bring, it created again this place of safety and connection, because you're not giving up on me. I didn't meet my goal, and you're a horrible plan, right? Like, you're like, no, okay, what next? What next? Yeah. And that is so empowering.
Well, I mean, just so you know, from where I sit, like, your success is my success. Like, as a coach, like, I think a lot of people get into coaching because they like fitness, but that's not why anybody should get into coaching. You should get into coaching because you like helping other people. So when I see you being successful in the program, I'm like, yes, like, this is working. It's almost like an external validation for my principles, But that brings me into, I think, another, so the next question, which is, and this is kind of like a stepping back, how quickly did you first start to notice things changing? And was there a moment when you thought, oh, like this is actually working for me?
Um, it was it was pretty right away, in that I felt like I had hope again after you and I talked and we looked at, kind of the plan. Okay, this is different, and this might actually work. Like, I'm pretty determined, but there's also this place in me that goes, I've never ever done this and succeeded. I've always failed at this. I've done crazy stuff to get healthy, and I've never done it fully, sustainably. And maybe now I can, because it was so different. It was such a different, I mean, I'd worked with personal trainers at the gym before, and it was just completely different from that. Uh, in that you weren't going anywhere. We were going to change my life, and we were going to take it one step at a time. And that was a big thing too, because you showed me things I could do. I remember one of the questions you asked was, how many days or how much time and how many days a week can you commit to working out? It wasn't, you have to do this 5 days a week at 5 a.m. for 50 miles. Blah, 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 blah. It was, what can you do right now? What can you commit to right now? Awesome. That's where we'll start right now. We're just going to do, I think it was 2 20-minute sessions or something like that.
Yeah, it was just like body weight exercises you did in your living room. That was it.
Yeah. And understanding that the goal was to move my body. The goal was to get the practice in of moving and establishing something for my health that took priority over anything else at that time, and figuring out how to work that in my living room until, I don't remember how long it took me to work up the courage to go to the gym, but you got me there. We got there. So it was pretty immediate that things started to shift for me, but in small, manageable ways. I didn't have to throw out my entire refrigerator. We didn't even start with that, actually. Food was not where we started. We started with the habits that would lead to me being successful in changing my nutrition and changing my exercise. But it really was the mindset and the mindfulness practice, I feel like, that started to help kind of bring it into cohesion. I could really, and that was different as well. I could see how understanding where my brain is, understanding what my body is feeling, those two things are very connected. Sometimes when I think I'm hungry, I'm just thirsty.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm bored or need a sensory release, I want to choose something. And so I think I'm hungry. Or sometimes I'm stressed, and that's a great place to have some crunchy Doritos or something in my mouth, or sit and veg out and not move my body. What we learned by doing these small manageable things was, what I learned was, actually, my body feels better when I move for 20 minutes.
Right.
Actually, when I meditate, I can see that feeling is not hunger, it's XYZ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a matter of restructuring those reward pathways, and I like that you said that you interjected, like, at least for me, because the thing that I try to explain to people, and I certainly try to keep into context for myself, is like the things that I'm teaching you are the things I learned from my own journey. Like when I tell people that I was obese like 15 years ago, they're like, no, you weren't. No way. I was obese, and like, so I knew that I knew how it felt. And I knew that there was not going to be some grandiose transformation, that it was like these little things we do in aggregate over time that led to meaningful and sustainable change, right?
You said something just now that reminded me. There was a week, I don't know, maybe halfway in the first year of us working together, and I hadn't gotten in a workout, and I was really upset about it. And you said, Alice, it's 1 out of 500, not 1 out of 5. And it really helped me kind of, again, shift the mindset to that one and done. Like, I'm going to do this diet for this much time and we'll lose this weight and then I'm going to be good, to I'm doing this for the rest of my life. I get to do this for the rest of my life. I get to take care of this. And I feel like I can, because now I have some tools and now I understand, and now I can hear myself and my brain. I can see all of these places that I just was so unaware, because I didn't have the tools and I didn't have anyone who's been there, who's been through the journey, who's lived it, to go, hey, this is what helped me. Want to try it? Let's see, and let's see if it works. And if it doesn't work, okay, great.
Yeah, and full disclosure,
okay,
when you and I first started working together, it was sort of like, well, this is what for me. I'm gonna see if it works for you. And like, yeah, when I started seeing, like, when you were putting in the weights like into the app and everything, and I just started seeing that, like, that downward trajectory, like, oh my God, it's working. It was like a relief for me, but beyond the scale, what would you say changed in your day-to-day life, like beyond just weight loss? Like, what were the things that you started noticing early on, and even to some extent now, that were like, just really meaningful changes that aren't necessarily reflected on the number on the scale?
There's a level of freedom that I had never had before. And it shows up in lots of places. So there's the physical freedom of moving my body how I want, when I want. Yeah, it doesn't mean I don't, do something stupid and wrench my ankle, or, there's that knee thing I dealt with. But I don't have to worry about fitting into, a seat on an airplane. I don't have to worry about whether or not I can do the walk that my niece wants to do, or whether I'm going to need to sit down on a bench 3 or 4 times. I'm free to go and do what I want when I want, and not worry about, do I have enough ibuprofen to get through the day because I'm going to hurt? Will there be enough snacks, or do I have to take some with me? Because it was a way I was dealing with pain and stress, and I wasn't always reading my hunger signals correctly. So there was that part too. I had all of these things that I had to plan and strategize in my day to get me through, because I was in so much pain and I was so stressed all the time. Now there's a level of freedom. Like, I don't worry about overeating. Actually, that's interesting to say, because I'm very aware. We track. I track in the app. You look at what I've done. The accountability absolutely helps. And when I'm hungry, I have options. I don't worry, oh my gosh, I can't go into the grocery store right now because I'm going to eat everything. No, if I'm hungry, I'm going to I'm going to acknowledge that I'm hungry. I'm going to deal with it before I go to the grocery store, or in the grocery store. Or I have some choices and what aligns with my priorities. And you know what? If it's a 600-calorie donut, it's a 600-calorie donut. Guess what? There's a place in my day that I can balance that out, and I don't have to shame or guilt myself because I ate a 600-calorie donut, because I know how to deal with that. And it's not by making myself feel horrid.
Yeah,
so there's
that's
that mental freedom.
Right. I'm sorry to cut you off there. I was just going to say, we hadn't really talked much about, like some of the more practical things that I think a lot of people probably expect when working with a trainer, is like the shaming around food. Like, you can't eat donuts for 6 months, no, like you can eat donuts, but here's how to think about how to structure your meals around allowing for the occasional indulgence. I mean, I don't want to paint like an unrealistic picture. Like, there are compromises that you have to make when it comes to weight loss. And that's like the hard work that people don't really want to do, which I understand. I mean, sometimes I don't like, this is why I do like bulking and cutting cycles, is because sometimes I do just want to eat ice cream and donuts and, and bake delicious breads, but yeah, like sometimes I like to be leaner and feel a little fitter, and my body thanks me for it too, but I don't think it occurs to people that there is that kind of flexibility. And certainly you're not there in your journey yet, because we still have, more weight that we want to lose. Okay. But like, that it's like, you've been in a maintenance phase for a long time. And that's another thing I think a lot of people wouldn't expect. It's like, oh, maintenance phase. Why? Like, if the goal is weight loss, why would you do a maintenance phase? Because the body racks up diet fatigue, and people don't even know what that is, So part of it falls on me to educate people in that sense, right?
Well, and that's one of the things you do really well, and I feel like is a big one I didn't expect, but is exactly what I needed, was that education. That it does empower me to have flexibility and to look at what's working and what's not working. And I remember being terrified to go on maintenance, even though the data was clear. It was time. I was so afraid because honestly, that's where I failed. And that yo-yo dieting and that roller coaster up and down, weight loss, weight gain, weight loss, weight gain, except more and more and more every time I gain it back. That is not being able to do maintenance.
Mhm.
And it had not occurred to me that it would be more difficult. In some ways, maintenance is more difficult.
Yeah, totally. I agree. I agree. And I hear
Ah.
that echoed a lot in bodybuilding circles in particular. It's like, yeah, maintenance is hard, but it's necessary. And
It's
it's
yummy,
also,
but
right. Yeah. It's a tool though, right? It's like, and the reality is that most people actually eat intuitively at maintenance, but then holidays roll around, so you're at maintenance for most of the year. Holidays roll around, you end up gaining 5 pounds, but then you're like at maintenance for the next year. And then you gain, like, cause you had said earlier, like 5 pounds every 10 years, still 50 pounds. Right. And that's what a lot of people are dealing with. And the data points at that too. It's like most people gain weight around the holidays and they just don't have the tools to get it off, and that's a big part of what we teach. And, we've obviously, because we've been working together for a couple of years, we've learned how to work around holidays. I mean, I'm kind of in camp, enjoy the holidays, but like I've also done weight loss phases through Thanksgiving. And that's part of why I've decided to become more of like a enjoy the holidays kind of guy. In fact, I bulk during Thanksgiving and Christmas because I'd rather just enjoy the holidays.
But what you speak to, though, again, is that flexibility. And I think that's something that is unique to this program, at least for anything I've ever seen. It's empowering with the tools to build the life and to have flexibility, because life is never constant. I mean, oh my goodness, the weather changes every day, right? Like even when we have weeks and weeks of the same weather, it's going to change, especially if you're in Virginia or Oregon. Apparently. Anyway.
Yeah.
that we have to be able to be responsive, and this concept that we need to be educated around how to do that, so that we can respond to whatever life throws and not have to resort to the shame blame game or resigning ourselves to living a life that we are not feeling free, we are not feeling happy, we are not physically, mentally, emotionally well. Why we think we are born with the knowledge on how to do that in this world, I don't know. But somewhere along the way, I think some of us thought, oh, we should just know how to do this. No, we should not just know how to do this. It takes focus and effort to learn it, just like anything else.
Yeah.
And we're not going to learn it if we keep yelling at ourselves.
Totally. And we evolved in a food scarce environment. And, and I think that's one of the reasons why obesity is such a global issue is, we've never had more access to cheap, high calorie foods, and this is one of the reasons why, and this would be a whole topic for another video, is I'm actually a proponent of the GLP-1 medications because again, we did not evolve for this kind of food environment. And, you and I have done the hard work of learning how to lose weight without those kinds of medications, but I wouldn't begrudge people for doing those. I think there's all kinds of reasons to engage in resistance training and still prioritize protein and get micronutrients in through eating a wide variety of fruits and vegetables and whole grains and yada yada yada. But you talked about food noise earlier. It's like planning your whole day around what you're going to be eating and whether or not you'd have enough snacks. And a lot of people are dealing with that. And a lot of what these GLP-1 medicines do is that they quiet down the food noise. And I know, people will be very passionately against, the use of those and everything, but I think there's some logical double standards being applied there. It's like yelling at people for like taking antidepressants, or ADHD medication. It's like there are hormonal and chemical imbalances that just happen. And if you're somebody who doesn't have issues with those, like, congratulations, you won the genetic lottery. But for the rest of people, it's like, these are tools that people can use that, yes, it's important to understand the downsides and the drawbacks, but, far be it from us to judge people for making choices around what they're doing with their body. Just like what you were talking about earlier is like some people, they don't want to lose weight. They can be a queen at whatever weight that they want to be at.
Totally.
Honestly, I'm so happy for those people, because I hate the feeling of looking in the mirror and being really dissatisfied with my body. And, I've gone through enough therapy to like deal with some of those emotions, but they're still there for a lot of people who have had to deal with obesity. Right. And I just think it's important to acknowledge some of the nuance here. And that's, I think, what separates, the work that you and I have done apart, is the willingness to acknowledge the nuance and to contextualize our lifestyles around, health and fitness and everything else, and understanding that it's holistic and not black and white. Right.
So much that, and so much the understanding of and I think it goes back to the talk around Ozempic and other ways to lose weight and change life, is we are also individual. And as you were talking specifically about Ozempic, I remember because I have a friend who's on the Ozempic, and she started similarly to the time that you and I started working together. And then we have a mutual friend, and we were talking at brunch with our mutual friend about our journeys and how both of us have been able to quiet that food noise and acknowledge the food noise, even just seeing it. And I think that for my friend, that Ozempic has been really powerful in helping her distinguish what that is like to not have. And my third friend, she said, wow, I don't have that food noise. That I have to remind myself to eat.
Right.
I eat like the way it tastes. I'm not driven to eat.
Yeah.
I don't have something. And we both kind of looked at her like, wow, what is that like? And
Right.
for her, it was like, wow, I didn't even realize this was a thing. And we were all having this wonderful, beautiful epiphany in different ways. And we're also individual. We're all unique. And I think that is another place I've really appreciated your program is we're also individual. We're also unique, and our lives constantly change.
Totally.
And there are some tools that we can use with consistency, and one of them being reflection and compassionate accountability, that will allow us to address all of those differences and changes. Because the other thing is, I'm going to change. I am not who I was when I started this program, and I'm not who I'm going to be in 6 months or a year, or probably even tomorrow, right? Every experience just changes us, I believe, just a little bit. And those over time add up, which is something you really did a great job of installing in my toolkit, is over time, consistency better than intensity, consistency over intensity every time. And so we have these tools that we can use. And if we use them with consistency, they will continue to work for us because we're working with them and building this healthy lifestyle, or building whatever the goal is. I don't know. You want to be a Bob Ross painter? Awesome. It's going to take, consistent effort over time. You don't just show up and 4 hours later you can paint like Bob Ross. It takes effort over time.
Totally.
But you can. And I think that's the other thing that for me was very different about your program, and about that, sometimes as an individual, I've looked at people who don't have the food noise and be like, well, I can never be like them. I'm never going to be skinny. I'm never going to not eat everything at the buffet table. I'm never going to have a freedom from being, these are my words, controlled by food and controlled by numbing habits, because I didn't deal with my stress and wasn't aware of how to do that. And why would I be? Why would any of us be without someone helping give us these tools? But once you get them, you're like, wow, this is so intuitive, I guess. And some of them feel more intuitive because we've done them for so long now that, I don't know, a year and a half or two in the grand scheme of 50 years isn't all that long. And so maybe that's, again, the power of consistency, doing them every day over time, practicing that reflective focus of how did it go? What does the data tell me? How am I doing? Am I on target? What do I want to shift and change? Awesome. Let's go try it. Let's roll.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm going to wrap up with, I got a couple more questions here for you. But for anybody watching, we're almost to the finish line here. And basically what I want to do is I want to address people who might be skeptical about doing this program. A lot of people might feel like too busy or worried they'll just fall off like before. And what would you say to somebody who is on the fence?
I would say do it. And here are a couple of reasons why I would say do it. I remember when we first started talking, one of the things we talked about was you are never going to be as young as you are now. You're never going to be as young as you are right now. How long do you want to live the way that you're living? If it's not fulfilling and it's not happy, you're dealing with pain or stress, how long you want to live that way? You'll never be as young as you are right now. And you're worth it. And I know that seems so cliche. The ability to say, I'm going to do this before I do that. I'm going to put myself first. I'm going to meal prep all of my lunches before I make dinner for my family. I'm going to literally put myself first. That requires some belief in yourself that you're worth that time, and the understanding that if you do that, you'll be able to take care of your family better. You'll be able to do the things that you want to do. You'll be able to have that freedom of not always worrying about things regarding your health, whether it's, I can't walk up the stairs the way I used to, or I can't carry feed bags to the barn the way I used to. I'm not as strong. Maybe yours isn't losing weight. Maybe yours is something else that you're working on in your health. All of the practices that we've done together have helped me pull in, again, that holistic. For me, it was everything in my life. I needed to get help doing those things. And it was done in a way that was manageable. And I think that's one of the things that was really difficult for me to understand was I got to change my whole life. So I got to throw everything out the window. And no. What can you commit to? Here are some very small, powerful changes that you can make, that if you do them every day over time, you do them every week over time, you get reflective on how many steps did I take this week, or whatever your goal is. How many minutes of mindfulness practice did I do? What did I do how many times did I put myself first? Whatever it is. But I wish I had done it sooner. And I know that, again, that's cliche, but the level of freedom and joy, it is both physically and figuratively a lighter life for me. The bad things aren't so bad because I know I have a tool to deal with it. The good things are better because I'm lighter and less worried about all this other noise. I can just be in that moment and enjoy that moment. And all of the moments that you get to have, the moment you start choosing yourself, the moment that you say, okay, I'm going to do this for me, because it actually is for everybody else too, but it's for you, right? The moment that starts, and every time you say yes to yourself after that, you get stronger, you get lighter. I got happier.
Yeah, it's kind of like the oxygen mask metaphor that we've talked about, in the airplane. Yeah. I feel like we came back to that concept a lot, in sort of the beginning of working together, is that self-care is not selfish, because ultimately, like for me, my son and I have such a close and tight-knit relationship. And if I'm not taking care of myself and I'm spiraling towards having a stroke in my 50s, and because of my AFib, like that's unfortunately like a possibility, right? Well, it isn't now because I've dealt with it. I've done the things that I need to do, and I haven't had an episode in almost 20 months. Yeah. But it's like I need to be able to show up for him. Like I want to show up to not just his first day of school or his graduation, or if he decides to go to college, or if he gets married or has a kid. Like I want to be there for all those events, and if I don't start right now, there's no guarantees. Like the tree falling on me could have easily killed me, and it didn't, and I'm lucky. And like I'm not gonna waste that second. It feels like a second chance to me, and I'm not gonna waste it, just by like not taking care of myself. I'm not trying to make this about me, but I think that it's like we talk about this a lot. It's like so much of your journey is our journey, and like I've shared so much of myself with you, and you've shared so much of yourself with me, and like I feel like we've done this together. you know, and I just want I want more of that for other people too. So if you're watching this, then let's work together, you know, because like more of this, please. Like good, great connection, and you know, and like and it's beyond. I'm not just your coach, I'm your friend. I mean, like, you know, we hit record about 50 minutes ago and we talked for an hour before hitting record, you know.
That's right.
So,
and we could probably still talk on for an hour.
We definitely could, you know.
And I really appreciate that. And I'm over here like biting my tongue, like, oh no, I want everyone to know this freedom. I want everyone to have this connection. Oh my goodness. There are so many places where we will do things for ourselves. We will not, without question. Of course, I'm going to hire a mechanic for my car. Of course, I'm going to go to the doctor when my arm is broken. Of course, but to think, oh, I'm going to hire a coach for my health. Yeah, of course you are. Of course, if that is something that is value to you, of course you are. But moreover, the joy I get from living the life where I'm free, I know I have a partner who is going to hold me accountable compassionately, but also a friend who's going to be able to look with me at my life and go, okay, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? How can I help you get there? Awesome. Here's what I think we need to do. What do you think? You know, and that collaborative, that is hope for my life.
Yeah.
Like,
and if it doesn't work, we'll try something else, right? Like we've done all kinds of things that didn't work. And then so we went back to the drawing board, you know?
And not being alone in it. And I think this is where I really worry sometimes that people listen to a lot of advice that isn't really well vetted. And that's so different with you and all the research and the work that you do and continue to do. And we've had so many conversations where we've talked about something. And then, you know, a month later, you'll come back and go, well, you know that we were talking about that? Well, I've just read some new research. And now they're thinking that, you know, how this and what do you think about that? And I have a partner in my health. That is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, if you're sitting on the fence about whether or not you want a partner for your health, can you do all that you want to do? Are you living joyous and happy? Is your stress level where you want it? Like, do you have a partner for your health? Do you know how to be your own health partner? Erin can teach you. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, cause we have to be our own advocates, you know, cause it's like I said, it's not like I'm making you do any of this stuff. It's like, if you've come to me in the past and been like, you know, I like this really isn't working. Like the hip thrusts, for example, like I'm not doing those, you know, and I was okay, well, we'll find something else. Like no problem at all, you know?
Yeah. Or I want to, you know, work out at home. Okay, well, let's take this gym workout and I can switch it to this. Or I want to do a pull up. I want to do it. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. I'm going to get a pull up. And that I really appreciate too, because I think that's a place where people can get stuck. Oh, I have this new goal. I've accomplished this. Now, how do I shift it? You know, I lost the first 20 pounds, or I can, you know, go to the dumbbells, but now I need something heavier. And I think I want to do a barbell workout, or, you know, I just can't seem to get the mindfulness practice in. Whatever it is, I have a partner in that. I have someone I can go to and can also teach me, this is how I can think about that for myself.
Yeah.
Like as a partnership for life, not as something you win or lose at, you succeed or fail at. No, it's an ongoing journey. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And actually you bring up a fair point, and we'll wrap up here, but it's like, you know, maybe some people don't want a health partner, you know, and I totally understand that. I mean, people might not be ready for that level of commitment, you know, but I think that you really hit it on the head though. It's like, you have to ask yourself the hard questions of like, well, are you happy with the way things are right now? And if you've tried things in the past and they didn't work, or you worked with somebody, you know, I've had email exchanges with people who are like, yeah, you know, I worked with a personal trainer, but you know, all he did was like make me do a bunch of stuff that like I kept telling him was too much, and I got super sore and I didn't want to, you know, I couldn't do it anymore. You know, and it's like, unfortunately, yeah, there are guys like that, guys and gals out there like that don't know how to respond to, the needs of the individual. And I really like to think that that's, what separates me, and what I'm really trying to do for others is like, I want to understand you and what your world is about and what you need, not what I need, not what my expectations are. You screw my expectations. Who cares about that? It's about what you and what you want.
Yeah. And that's something you do really well.
Thank
Again, that individualization of, hey, you're an individual and I care about you as the individual and what your individual goals are. That is so different, I think, than experiences other people have had where, I've got this plan and you're going to go on it. And if you don't succeed, that's on you.
Yeah.
That's not how health works, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, great.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Alice. This was wonderful. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk today and answer my questions.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Cool. Well, we'll see you next time.
Yes, we will. Thank you, sir.